Recording in progress.
Good evening and welcome to the September 18th, 2025 meeting of the Brookline School Committee. The first item on our agenda is a proposed executive session. I move to meet an executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for the following purposes. Purpose 3, to discuss litigation strategy in relation to a pre-suit claim asserted by the minor victim of sexual abuse perpetrated by former Hayes School teacher Larry Chen, and purpose 7, to review and approve executive session minutes from June 23rd, 2025 and June 25th, 2025. Is there a second?
Second.
Suzanne seconded first. And Donna, how do you vote?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Jesse?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. We will be returning to open session. Welcome back to the September 18th, 2025 meeting of the Brookline School Committee. We're moving on to item 2A, the consent agenda, international student trip, Brookline High School Spanish trip to Mexico, February 13th through the 27th, 2026. Motion to approve the consent agenda? Suzanne moves. Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Jesse seconds. Suzanne, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Mariah?
Yes.
Jesse?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Bob? And the chair votes yes. Number 3 was public comment. We have nobody signed up for public comment. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to provide public comment? Okay. Next up, we have our student report, our first student report of this school year. Aditi?
How exciting. And then share my screen.
Exactly, yeah.
Hi, everyone.
In the Zoom shut here.
Okay, hi, everyone. This is my first report on BHS as the school committee representative from the high school. So here's my September update. So the biggest thing I'd say that's going on at the start of this year is we have a new schedule in light of the findings from the state that we need, I believe it's 50 more hours of time on learning this year. There's been a couple changes that have gone into place about this new schedule. So first of all, school starts 5 minutes earlier and ends 5 minutes later. So it now runs 8:15 to 3 p.m. Classes meet 4 times a week. That's the same as last year, but now we have 57-minute blocks that are 3 times a week and one long 65-minute block. As you can see in the image, the blue squares are the long blocks, so each block meets once for an additional 8 minutes. This is a little bit different from last year where each block met for 55 minutes 4 times a week. Another change that happened is passing time, which has been reduced from 7 to 5 minutes. I personally haven't seen that much of an issue with this reduce in passing time, but I know that it's been harder for students who take classes in the freshman building. So that's freshmen and also some seniors who take physics, and then students who have other electives in the UA building or have a wellness class in the gym. So that can lead to some difficulties, but I know that teachers are being accommodating, especially when students tell them ahead of time that they have a class every day that is across the campus. T and X block, so T block is advisory, X block is the free block that clubs use to meet and student government uses to meet. So now T and X are operating on rotation every other week, and during 4-day week schedules, which happen 10 times per year, I believe, because of holidays, T and X both meet. And I know that one concern about this is, one, clubs are getting less time to meet, especially for students who participate in sports and other after-school activities. It's hard to find a time to meet with clubs, and also for student government. So legislature meets during X block every week, or previously every week. So now it's becoming we're trying to adapt to meeting every other week and changing our practices. The other thing was Z block has been reduced by, I believe, 15 minutes over the course of the week. And luckily it still has been preserved, because I know last year there were conversations about how we'd accommodate everything, because Z block I don't think counts as the time on learning, since it only applies to some people who take orchestra electives. So then the other thing that happened recently was the club fair, which met X block of last week in the quad. And here we saw tables for every club imaginable, from speech and debate to student government to Asian board games clubs. There was tons of different clubs. Students have the opportunity to create and meet, even though now there is the question of when are clubs going to meet, or they're not going to be able to meet as often. But we still saw lots of people at the club fair talking about their clubs, and lots of people showed interest, which is really great to see everything that VHS has to offer in that regard. The final thing I'm going to talk about today is some senior specific highlights. So there have been visiting college reps from over 200 universities and even international colleges. I know last week we had some reps from George Washington University in DC, a few other schools. I think next week we're going to have Trinity College Dublin come. So students have the opportunity to get permission slips signed by their teachers and to step out of class for a little bit to meet with these college reps and ask questions. Senior Parent Night also happened on September 10th, which was the BHS counseling department and Lenny Libinson, who is in charge of college counseling. And he presented just about some deadlines and different things that seniors should keep in mind. That's my presentation.
Thank you very much. Any questions for her? You covered it all. Thank you so much. Oh, Mariah.
I just wanted to say it was a stellar start to your time here on the committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on to administrative business. First up, our acceptance of grants for 5A through G. Mariah, are you walking us through these? Okay, that'd be great.
So the Finance Committee reviewed these at our September 10th meeting, I believe. And I believe, if I recall correctly, we voted favorably on them as a block 3-0 with one abstention. We went through them. Robin Benoit was there to review the Title 1 through 4 grants. Karen Schmuckler was there to review, that's 5A through D. Karen Schmuckler was there to review E and F. And then Robin, I think you also went through G, or both of you went through the BEF grants with us. So if there's specific questions, they're both here again. I don't think I'm trying to remember if there was any, it was 2 weeks ago now, or a week and a half. I'm trying to remember if there was any particular things to call out, but not that I can remember off the top of my head. So I guess if you want to take questions, we can, or I'll make a motion to approve
What are you moving?
all of them.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay, this is a quiet group today. Oh, Donna. Sorry. It's okay.
I did just want to call out something from our finance subcommittee meeting that time, and say that I did bring up that I was concerned about, or I wanted to be assured that given that there's no framework within the district to vet resources, that was something that had come up in the aftermath of October 7th, and that there have been instances where it was equity-related resources that contained deeply anti-Semitic material, that I wanted to be assured that someone was going to review, specifically the training for the equity leads, and I think there was something else, and that was addressed.
Thank you. Anything else? Carolyn?
Quickly, I guess this is a little bit of a segue from that, and I'm going to vote yes on all of these. But also on the ideas training, and I think I believe that the ideas program it's longstanding, it's super credible, it's run by wonderful people. Of course, it's well-intentioned, but I just feel, I don't love saying this, but I feel some discomfort with when I see a framing that this sort of oppressor-oppressed narrative, which is kind of central to programs that are use this framework of dismantling systems of oppression. I'm not convinced, first of all, I don't think we've seen evidence that's impacting student achievement in a positive way. And I do think we've heard from the public, students, community members, and I could speak to it myself, I won't in detail now. I worry that framework has the potential to be alienating and divisive, as well-meaning as it is. And I think it's has sort of trickled down to where I worry that we're kind of swimming in that. And my hope is that that's less of a primary kind of driver in the district going forward. So I have some concerns and reservations on that one. And I hope we'll have more conversations in the coming months about
Just to clarify, what Carolyn's referring to is one of multiple small grants within the BEF grant. If I recall correctly, it's like for $14,000. So there's many millions of dollars here, and that's a very small fraction. One additional comment I did want to make, actually, just to highlight and to thank staff in particular, because our cover sheet now has this wonderful feature, which, two things actually, which I loved about it. One was it tells us what we were awarded last year, so we can see shifting in dollar amounts, which is very handy to sort of say, like, is it level, is it going up? And so the Title I grant actually increased by 400-ish thousand around, yeah. And I don't know that we got a clear answer. I'm not sure that anyone knew why, but we got 400,000 more dollars, and the great news about that is it actually reduces the borrowing against FY27 circuit breaker funds that we had had to do earlier. So that's great. We're chipping away at that. Hopefully that trend continues. And the other thing I wanted to mention was that the cover sheet, because of the cover sheet that was really easy to see, I was like, oh, wow, there's this huge difference in one year to the other. And then the other thing is the cover sheet sort of summarizes the key goals, like in maybe 3 or 4 bullets of like what they're going to do. And it was really handy to not have to wade through for some of these dozens of pages. I think this packet for 7 was 85 pages long or so. So it was really handy to get that. We've been working on the cover page, and I really love like new innovations make it great for us to use. So that's all I wanted to add.
As well as the related activities. That was the other.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Those
Right.
bullets, yes, exactly.
In
The
addition
first
to the
summary.
goals, yeah.
Yes.
So thank you, Mariah, and thanks to staff for making those changes. Donna, how do you vote? Oh, Suzanne, how do you vote? Yes. Sarah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mariah?
Yes.
Jesse?
Yes.
Carolyn?
yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Moving on to the superintendent's report. Bella?
Great, thank you. Betsy's going to run the slides for me. And I know you just voted, but I was really impressed with how dexterous our SLT members were about adjusting to changing amounts and moving things around. It was really, really quite impressive. So tonight, as I forecast last time, I wanted to highlight our strategic objectives and priorities for the year. So one thing, the reference document is the Public Schools of Brookline Strategic Plan, which is on the website. So there is a strategic plan, 2027 to 2027, and so that is the reference document for everything. So everything that I say we're highlighting this year came from that document. The objectives, when you look to the strategic plan, there are 5 goals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the objectives are described in the goals outlined in the plan. So that's what I mean by that these are the things that you want to achieve, want to take care of. Below each goal area in the strategic plan are these bullets of priorities, and those are your priorities, the bullets under each goal section. And then the overall action plan is laid out by year. So it's like by FY25, you're going to do this, you're going to do this in FY26 and 27. And then, so when I arrived, I look for, and I studied the strategic plan, but strategic plans typically get updated while in progress. And so working with the SLT team and then aiming for our meeting in July, we got input from the principals and from the senior directors that were in attendance. We went through the strategic plan, goal by goal, bullet by bullet, because remember, Robin, myself, and Karen, none of us have been through the summer cycle. So really, we relied on the input and information from the principals and the senior directors about where we were on the strategic plan. Some of it was like, have we met that target already? And actually, there's been really great progress on attendance, really great progress on belonging. I believe that data was presented to school committee last spring, so you're aware of that. So in some ways, you feel like, whoa, we made great progress on some targets. Some, oh, they were supposed to be completed by this year, they're not. So, we're picking them up anyway. So it was just, but typically that's what happens. When you're in a multi-year plan, you check in, and see what there is to do. Next slide. So this is what guided us to, as we decided on what we're priorities. So instead of looking at a multi-year, presenting you with a multi-year plan, I think we took the strategic plan and identified the priorities that made sense, that 3 of us are interim and one permanent, obviously our deputy superintendent of OAF. So what can we really make strides on in this year? Lay the groundwork for the next year. There also, we really wanted to take advantage of the work that had been done and really wanted to move forward. Even though we're in interim status, we wanted to really be able to lead the group and take advantage of the investment and not have people feel like they were in a waiting pattern for a year. That was really important to all of us that are part of the senior leadership team. And also not just starting them, but making sure that we're doing it right. So we're really, that we're committed to that. And also being transparent that, for instance, you're going to hear an introduction update on the literacy implementation for this year, but being transparent that this is K-5 and what are the next steps for 6 through 8, that it's not just a 1 year, it'll be a multi-year process of implementation and more development. So these are things that we were thinking about when we went through the strategic plan. So starting, I believe, with goal 1, to remind you, next slide, thank you. So your first goal, great, is on teaching and learning. This is your overall objective. This is your strategic plan. And it does say that you are looking to increase achievement for all students. All right, so that's a really key term, all students, no matter where they might be. Increasing the achievement for all students. And we're looking at a consistent, high quality and challenging curriculum. So it's in your strategic plan, all students, taking them where they are and moving them forward. And then under the goal, there were these bullets. And so the next slide shows the items of prioritization for this year. Implementation and development of the new literacy program, K through 8. They will do a presentation tonight to identify K-5, 6 through 8. Complete a plan for providing PD around MTSS. So that has been in process, but not a full plan for implementation at MTSS more fully, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 supports. Continuing with scope and sequence with common assessments in ELA, math, science, and world language. I know in many of my interviews, particularly at the high school, they've been working on scope and sequence and common assessments as a response to their recent NEASC review and visitation. But I know that that's something that we're also looking at K-8, obviously a big step forward as we do the literacy implementation. A next step is to work on the standard-based equitable report cards that reflect the above changes. I put it here because I just feel like it's a really strong anticipatory next step. It's not going to be done this year because you really need to do more of the scope and sequence before you can look to that. But I know that this, in the feedback from the principals, that this is a really important. Yeah, super important, but they can't do it yet till they do the other parts. But I didn't want to lose that. So it's there. You will not see a report of completion at the end of this year, but it's there because I feel it's integral to all the other things that you're doing. Developing a vision of a BHS graduate to include K-8. So the strategic plan really talks about vision of a BHS graduate, but we talked all together that it should be anticipating a K-12 vision of a portrait of a learner. And so the funding that was made available in the budget for this year supports the visioning of a BHS graduate. And so our workaround is to be sure there's K-8 representation on those committees as they create that vision. But I say to you, when we talk about developing, that the notion of a portrait of a learner in K-12 is to be developed and important. And then supporting supervision evaluation for 100% of educators. As I'll say, and you know, the most important thing happening is that interaction between teacher and student. And those of us in administrative positions, it's really, I think, our primary role to facilitate what's happening in the classroom. And that does include supervision and evaluation, includes the training, includes curriculum development and all of that. But this is an important piece of that happening. So the second most important educator role in the district is those of the principals and those of that are serving as evaluators. And then those of us that are mentoring and supporting people that are supervising and evaluating others. So that would be goal 1. Goal 2, this is your objective for goal 2, community and connections, develop and implement a culturally responsive community engagement plan to foster connections around the caregivers, schools, the district, and the community. So we have a single priority identified on the next slide, and that is to continue supporting equitable systems of protocols and expectations for two-way communication with all community members at the school and district levels to inform and receive input, to include families and resident non-school community members. So really being able to listen to all in the community. And when I say equitable systems of protocols, it's just finding ways to communicate with our different members in a way that's accessible to them. I will say this is challenged by not having a communications director and who supported us in the creation of the newsletters and also in updating our website. But I still feel we can't let go of the goal, so it's still here, but we're finding ways to work around it. The principals are doing their newsletters. Zeke, who is assistant to Susan, actually has stepped up to updating our website, the small pieces. And Kathleen has offered to do the newsletter for me. So we're going to have a later start to that, but she's going to do that. So people are stepping up to fill those gaps, but that's not really. I'm going to say we're going to be cobbling it together for this year. Make sure that there's no gaps in important information going out, but it's not as facile as one would hope. So we're going to be doing it. It won't be as. Anyway, we're going to do our best. It's going to be great. But anyway, so there it is. Because you can't let go of this objective. You can't let go of this priority. The next objective, climate and culture. Yeah,
Actually, no,
sorry.
go ahead and I'll ask my question at the end.
Okay. Climate and culture is your next objective. Partner with families and the community to create safe environments that promote belonging. Honestly, at this point in the third year of your strategic plan, there's such evidence of progress in this area. A lot of them championed and fostered by Senior Director Matt Dubois. I'm just struggling with the title of Clinical Counseling and Social and Emotional Learning. And he's done a lot of work partnering with different groups. And also in my entry interviews, there were so many community groups that wanted to reach out and have time with me. So there's just really, I visited the teen center the other day. There's just a lot of great partnerships. So a lot of progress on this. So continuing with, and there'll be some presentations I know coming in October around SEL curriculum in 85% of the pre-K classrooms, SEL curriculum in 85% of middle school classrooms. I know we're pretty on target for number one. We need to move. There's more movement necessary in the second one. Sustain our panorama surveys, sustain the district-wide attendance and engagement working groups. So attendance looks really a lot of positive progress, and the district should be proud of it because I know other districts have been working on it, and the data here is definitely above the norm. Provide coaching to PD and coaching to staff that foster focuses on inclusion, differentiation. And remember, differentiation is to meet the needs of students across the spectrum. So our students on target, and also advanced learners. It's all of that. Next slide, please. So identifying and affirming these priorities underscores that equity, addressing the needs of all students, is at the core of our work and the necessity of our collective intentionality towards that end. So we have goals that strive for improvement. The only way you're going to achieve that outcome is that all schools are working together across the grade levels. No single grade teacher is going to be able to do that. And so it's really all teachers working together, all grade levels working together, all 8 schools, and supporting that entry to high school all together. The school improvement plans will align with the goals. And again, the strategic plan is not new. It's been your document, and we are just taking the pieces out of that and making sure we carry it forward. The educator professional learning and student learning goals will align with the SIP or the district's stated priorities. So that every year when in the evaluation cycle, whether you're on a 1-year cycle or a 2-year cycle, you have to pick your professional learning goals and student learning goals. And so teachers who have already attained professional teacher status, they're on a 2-year cycle, and all teachers in their first 3 years are on a 1-year cycle. If a teacher's on an improvement plan, then they would be maybe back to a 1-year cycle. So I think the district is well positioned to move ahead on already established initiatives. And so then our work ahead of us is to see that implementation is done with fidelity across the district, but also that we are making sure that we're laying the groundwork for future development and implementation and expansion across the grades and across the schools. The next slide. So in the work with the leadership teams, with the principals, and then again with all our curriculum coordinators, senior directors across the district, really focused on 1, 2, 3, because that's the work directly working with students and faculty. 4 and 5 in your strategic plan was really about the senior leadership team. The goal 4 was develop resource management and capacity building systems that will ensure educational and organizational goals are timely and accomplished with transparency. And goal 5 was governance, excuse me. The governance objective foresaw that OSS, OAF, and the superintendent, along with, thank you, OEE, we're going to work together to integrate their systems. Thank you. You giving me your water? Okay. Thank you. So governance I just name it because, so there was a fourth pillar that, oh, thank you. So this area does need attention. So SLT has been the level most impacted by turnover and reductions. There are just some key positions across the four corners that and we're navigating that, we're wayfinding through that, we're trying to figure out how to reorganize while we're actually already flying. So this is something that we need to look at reorganization and assessment of the impact of those changes, and we have to finish it before the development of the FY27 budget. And this goes to where I've said that there may be a possible need to address restoration of functions that were gone. I don't know that it will be restoration of a position as it was. It may mean that we've resolved that we have some functions that we need to bring back. And so I am not ready to even tell you what those are, but it's something that we need to do. We need to ensure accessible fluidity of our data systems for the purpose of informing future practice and planning. We are compromised because we did lose a key data position, so we're also sorting that out. But this was identified as a priority, and I have perhaps reworded it in a way that makes sense to me. But our systems need to flow together, and people all through the district need to be able to access that data. And we need to do that to know how we're doing, where the gaps are, and inform our practice and planning. We're not at that place now because we're missing some of our parts. And so we need to, again, this is part of our reorganization and assessment. We're still working with data. It's just harder than it would have been. So we're absolutely looking at our data and working with what we have. We find errors in our data, we're addressing them as we come upon it. So we're embracing all the data that there is, and when we find errors, we're committed to repairing them. We need to affirm system protocols and expectations across all functions. So this is part of the response to the entry interviews with the change of leadership. So many people in key positions in SLT and maybe one level down. People are somewhat adhering to protocols as they remember that they were before, but they may not be the best protocols for the here and now. And so honestly, I think we're all taking a fresh look and not feeling we have to do things out all the way they've been done, and trying to rethink through those systems and protocols and expectations for roles and how people need to work with one another, again, across all functions. So when I say all functions, OAF, OSS, OTL, and then our support functions, data and tech. We need to establish open lines of communications across levels of leadership and staff across schools and departments. And so I think I have also already described how we're trying to do our Monday schedules so that we're aligned and we're more modular so we can meet with different groups. We've had 2 meetings with our principals. I know that curriculum coordinators have met, different groups are meeting, and we're just trying to keep that as a norm and a routine, and so that in hopes that that's going to foster horizontal communication and vertical. We are looking forward to our first 64-person training session on supervision and evaluation on the coming Monday, and then the next one will be on the 30th. So 6 hours being done across 64 personnel in double sessions in over 1 and 2. But also this will be a shared experience. Part of it too is starting early. We had a shared experience on August 25th. This will also be a shared experience that we can refer to and talk to one another about. And so we hope to have other opportunities to have those kind of shared experiences, so a basis for communication. I added one on the bottom. It wasn't in your strategic plan, but I am identifying it in administration and operational priorities. We need to improve the fluidity of the integrated town school functions. So I feel if you're doing the work, you should just name it as a goal and get credit for it. So, I mean, this is consuming a lot of time. And I want to highlight that this is an effort that we are working on. And I believe that's the last slide. Yeah. So it's just a really high level look at what we are focusing on as objectives and priorities for the coming year, and it's how we derived it or got it from the strategic plan, and how we have maybe oriented it to the needs that we've identified so far. So if you have questions.
Thank you. Very much like last week, an informative and full report. Thank you. Questions or comments? I have a question. Mariah?
My question was just, and if I'd known, I should have brought my strategic plan so I could have looked, but what are we not doing that was in the strategic, like what have you deprioritized, if anything?
I think maybe more discrete items. I think the things that we really pulled out are things that need to be built upon. So I think we're, like, for instance, the implementation of literacy, but the MTSS development, looking at town school partnership, things for the long term, I think is what we focused on. Things that were system-wide, that everyone could find a place in that. So we're really looking at our 64 leaders. It's really 70 leaders, but 64 that are more connected to teaching and learning. We have, of course, Joe Albuquerque, other leaders of other departments or food service. So it's 70, but 64 that are more directed towards supporting student-facing work. That would be the way I would describe it. Is
Can you give me an example? Can you give an example of something you cut? Just to help me understand.
I don't feel like I cut anything.
Okay.
So on there, I said that we would ask our educators when they choose their professional learning goal and student learning goal, that they align with the SIP or something else identified in the district's strategic plan. I've always been in favor that in a given strategic plan, there is something for everyone. And I feel it's okay to let people pursue, like, that's something that's really interesting to me and I want to pursue it. And as long as it's on the strategic plan, it means eventually we're all still going in the same direction or the right direction. Seal It by Literacy might have been on there, so I didn't name it, but it's a discrete thing. But I know that there are people in the district that are going to say they want to do that. Yeah.
Bob?
Yeah, thank you. Bella, you're having supervision evaluation training Monday and another day as well, right?
Yes.
Can I ask who's doing that? Just curious.
We engaged Rebus Associates, and it happens to be Carol Gregory, who's going to be our instructor. And so he's chuckling because Carol Gregory used to work for the Brookline, for Public Schools of Brookline, and
That's great.
she was a former union leader, and
Principal.
she's been working with Rebus for quite some time. She did the training here, that was a little over 5 years ago, and I understand there was positive reception to Carol's sessions. She's very organized and, yeah.
It's great, great.
Karen sent out a survey to all our leaders in the group about what they would hope to come out of the sessions. So I culled some of the highlights of that and sent it to Carol. She agreed to maybe differentiate slightly between the two groups. So, but she's the one doing it.
Great. I just want to appreciate last week and tonight, your emphasis on every child in the school system is very healthy. I just want to compliment you on that all the time.
Thank you. And then, and we're only as strong as our teams. So I know that you're gonna enjoy the presentation later as an indication of like how everyone's working together and the things that we have to look forward to.
Thank you. And again, another excellent presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Donna?
Thank you. I also really appreciated everything you shared. I'm very excited for the supervision and evaluation work. I think that's an incredibly important part of our commitment to our educators. Of course, I love communication, so open communication I think is incredibly important. I was interested, and this could be super quick, but with the strategic plan coming to a close, like the term is coming to a close in FY27, what is best practice to start building out a new strategic plan?
So I feel very privileged to be here as your interim and that there was a plan that to use as guidance. So I really feel that with your permanent leader, that's their vision should be reflected in the next stage. So I think what we're doing, as I said, we're focused on what we're doing this year, but I think that the work is anticipating what you may need for the next year. So as we work on building the FY27 budget, I have talked about possibly looking at restoration, but I've also talked about, the need to develop or continue things that you've already invested in. So I think it'll be, because we are charged with building the FY27 budget, it will reflect what we think you need to have to support in the work in the next year. And so I think we hope to leave you in good shape for that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else? Okay, Suzanne?
Yeah, thank you, Bella. We all have our own little special things that we focus on. I have several, but the one that intrigues me in terms of it being a challenge is the school improvement plans aligning, not with the goals. I think they're able to do that, but I don't know that we give them discretionary funds to make it happen. And so I'm not asking for, necessarily a response now, but that is something that I think about a lot. And we're going to be doing the school improvement plans in October in curriculum. And, so it's always that kind of push-pull between what's important for them at their school, and what's important at the district level. And so, again, blending that together, but in particular giving them some kind of leeway or the funds available that they need to make the work happen. And I don't know that we do that as well as I would like to see sometimes. So anyway, I'm just throwing it out there, some of the challenges we have around that.
By the way, I think they were really happy to be coming in October instead of September.
There you go.
Yeah. So-
Well, and the other challenge with that is that they're talking now about this year, but we need to know the budgeting for next year. So it's not only this year's goals, but of course they have to think about down the road because our budget is process is going to happen January or so. And so we need to know now what they're thinking they need budget-wise for the following year. Bob?
You probably know this, Suzanne, because you were principal at the time, I believe. When school improvement councils began back in the 1990s, as part of school reform in Massachusetts, each school council was given $10 per student to allocate as part of their planning. So that disappeared when I don't even know when it disappeared, but that was hugely helpful because there was real buy-in and investment in the plans because now there was some money behind it. So a place like Brookline High with 2,000 kids got $20,000. And you can do something with $20,000. Anyway, you remember that.
I do remember that. I don't remember how much I got, but I do remember.
I'm sorry?
All I'm saying is $10 a kid went a lot further in 1993 or 1994 than it does in 2025. That's all.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anybody else? Thank you, Bella. Thank you. Next up is the update on the literacy program implementation.
So as they are gathering and they're coming up, I think I was going to ask Robin maybe to introduce the group. And also, this is, we thought it would be good to give you an overview at the beginning, at the start, and that they will come back later in the spring to just give an update of how it's gone. All right, so this is just to let you know what the plans are.
Okay, thank you, and it's nice to see you all again in such a short time frame. But nice. I want to introduce my co-presenters tonight. So this is Dr. Joelle Peterson. She is our new interim senior director of teaching and learning, mouthful, and Kristen Gray, who is our K-8 ELA coordinator, now permanent, no longer interim. So. Okay, so we thought we'd give you a little update on the ELA curriculum implementation that's happening. Full implementation at K-5 and partial implementation, as we discussed last week, at the 6-8 level. So not all classrooms and not all units. But we thought we would begin, let's see, by just grounding it in beginning with our strategic priority. So Bella has already mentioned this one this evening, so which is to increase achievement for all students by establishing, implementing, and regularly assessing a consistent, high quality, and challenging curriculum developed using evidence-based practices. And so this grounds all of the work that's led to the selection of Fish Tank as our ELA curriculum, and certainly our implementation and all of the learning that goes alongside it. And then underneath that was one of the objectives that had to do with that strategic priority along the way, which is to select evidence-based materials and provide professional learning opportunities to offer effective Tier 1 instruction to teach all literacy components. So as we go through our presentation tonight, we felt like it was important to kind of remember where we've been, because this isn't a journey that happened overnight, and the work that's leading to this moment of implementation has actually taken a number of years as a district. And so Massachusetts recommends a 4-step process for any selection and implementation. And it really, while it's a linear process, it's not necessarily time-bound. Like, different steps will take different amounts of time. You might be kind of moving in between steps at any given time. But our learn and prepare phase actually began back in 2022. And so there was a couple of years of learning that happened on the parts of educators and the district in preparing for even thinking about selecting a curriculum for our K-8 students. And Kristen and Joelle will talk a little bit about what that learning is. The investigate and select really happened in the spring of 2024 and the fall of 2024. So that, bridged the end of a school year and the beginning of a next, and we'll talk about what that part looked like. Our launch really happened last spring, where we were starting to prepare to implement, and then we're at this moment of implementation and monitoring. Along the way, we also wanted to just recognize that we had a lot of partners in this work that we engaged to help with our learning and to help kind of think about what truly we needed, and we may mention some along the way, but I listed them there for you at the bottom because I think it's also important to remember all of the work that's gone into and all of the, the thoughtful planning to prepare for this moment.
Thank you, Dr. Benoit. Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to share about this work tonight. I just wanted to take a second to contextualize this curriculum adoption within the larger shifts that we've been experiencing here in Massachusetts and across the country in terms of how we're thinking about the importance of evidence-based literacy instruction and curriculum materials that support that. So over the past 3 or 4 years, we have seen large-scale movement away from approaches we might think about as balanced literacy towards more structured, sequential approaches to teaching foundational reading skills. And along with that has come an increased emphasis on building students' high-level comprehension skills through the use of complex knowledge-rich text sets. So we can see DESE has outlined for us here nicely some of these shifts that I'm talking about. Back in 22, 23, Kristen did some really deep work with her literacy specialists to build deeper understanding of this first shift. They really dug into the research around how to support foundational skills development in reading. I'm thinking about things like how do we use decodable text to enhance our phonics construction? What is orthographic mapping and why is it important? And so there's a really strong knowledge base within the group around that first shift. But at the same time, the group was realizing, and I think community members here were realizing too, that the core reading program we were using at the time, which was units of study, was not evidence-based, and it was not aligned with this intent of building comprehension through the use of complex, knowledge-rich texts. So that's really what occasioned the need to review the curriculum more deeply. And Kristen's going to talk a little bit more about that process.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so this visual combines two models of reading, the simple view of reading in Scarborough's reading rope. In order for a student to comprehend and be a skilled reader, they need to have strong decoding skills or word recognition and robust language comprehension, which includes background knowledge, vocabulary, language structure, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge. Our evidence-based instruction for the strand of word recognition was an area of strength because we are using a systematic, explicit approach with Foundations, which is our phonics program, Haggerty, our phonemic awareness program, along with decodables to support student learning. However, we had an area of improvement with our research-based instruction for the language comprehension strand because we were using, like Joelle said, we've been using the units of study for teaching reading and writing. So therefore, we needed to look deeper into the high-quality instructional materials and select an updated curriculum that allowed us to focus on language comprehension. And so a knowledge-building curriculum would allow us to have consistency across the district for learning about topics of study at a deeper level and the use of complex texts.
So as you begin any journey in adoption, it's kind of you have to start thinking about what's your vision for students and for instruction. And so in this case, our vision for ELA was that students will become critical thinkers who challenge themselves to expand and question the perspectives of themselves and others through reading, writing, speaking, and or listening. And so that was core as we began to think about our selection of texts. And then the selection process really took 2 stages. So in the spring of 2024, just remembering that you had a literacy team, which was some of our curriculum coordinators, it was our literacy specialists, really did that first pass of looking at high quality curriculum materials. And so they began that by looking at 7 different DESE approved programs. They used review reports from Ed Reports and Curate to begin that. And that's a pretty typical process. And when you think about Ed Reports and Curate, it's important to know what those 2 things are. It's kind of their third party, kind of neutral, give you information. Think about them like consumer reports, right? You like look to them to get that first pass. Ed Reports is more national standards based, and then Curate is really specific to Massachusetts. So it takes what Ed Reports does, it takes it a level deeper. It really has Massachusetts educators that are part of that review, and there is a focus on Massachusetts standards and ensuring alignment to our Massachusetts standards. And also there is focus in the Curate process of ensuring alignment to practices that support culturally and linguistically diverse students. So making sure that is an aspect of that you're reviewing curriculum for. From that, it was narrowed to 3 programs that would be further reviewed. And so that was where the work of the fall came last fall. And so I am sure that you were, many of you were here at that point. And talking about at that point is where we did a deeper dive with Brookline educators and gave them the opportunity for critical review. And so teachers had the opportunity to meet with the vendors from the 3 different curriculum resources and review those materials during their collab times and during faculty meeting times. So they were given some times to review those materials in person. You could touch it, you can flip through it, you can learn about them more in depth. And they were providing feedback on what they were looking at with using a rubric. And we modeled our rubric very similarly after the rubric that's used in the Curate process. So it's looking at those instructional materials, it's looking at the texts that are part of that, and also ensuring that there's cohesion and how the utility of the materials for teachers. There was also an open house for community members to review and provide feedback. So there's an engagement of stakeholders beyond the classroom, which is important. And in the end, we chose Fish Tank.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about Fish Tank. So our stakeholders felt that Fish Tank supported and encompassed our PSB's ELA vision statement that students will become critical thinkers who challenge themselves to expand and question the perspectives of themselves and others through reading, writing, speaking, and/or listening. And PSB's core values, especially celebration of difference and commitment to equity. So Fish Tank has 5 guiding principles. Building knowledge is at the heart of all Fish Tank ELA units. Students build knowledge of the world around them, knowledge of themselves and others, and knowledge of their power to create change. Gaining knowledge is essential for tackling increasingly complex texts and building critical thinking skills. Also, all students, regardless of their background or circumstance, need access to complex texts that highlight a diverse range of perspectives and experience. So students should see windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors within the text that they're reading. The prioritizing student voices and ideas to build agency. This is, students are engaged in regular academic discourse, and it's essential for students to synthesize text and content, spark their curiosity, and develop original ideas and find their own voice. In all Fish Tank units, students are engaged in daily formal and informal discourse. Students are writing in all lessons in a variety of ways, and all writing that students do is connected to the text and knowledge that they are building. And a big piece of Fish Tank is intellectual prep. So this allows teachers to deeply understand the text and the complexity and the themes so they can help all students master grade level content and standards. And I should emphasize all students, just like Bella did. Okay. So we went, once we had our chosen curriculum that we were going to move forward with, we went and moved into the launch phase. So our educators went through a series of Fish Tank PD sessions. The K-5 cohort of educators were trained in the spring of 2025, and the K-8 cohort were trained this summer through support of our PRISM 3 grant. The PD sessions focused on the components of Fish Tank ELA, text complexity, and how to intellectually prepare for the units. And we also provided materials. So K-5 had access to the Fish Tank ELA Plus subscription in February, and all texts for K-5 were purchased last school year in the spring, and the teachers were given the text before the end of the last school year. In 6 to 8, the folks had access to our Fish Tank ELA Plus subscriptions in July, and all texts were purchased in August. So the PRISM 3 grant funded 50% of the purchase price for both the online subscriptions and the trade books. So that really helped us move forward with our 6 to 8 cohort. Now I'm going to give it to Joelle.
Okay, there we go. And I'm going to close this out by sharing a bit more about our plans for implementation this year, which is, I know, why we're all here, really. As Kristen and Robin both shared, we are currently in full implementation in grades K through 5. That means that every classroom teacher is using all the fish tank units as their core literacy curriculum. So I just want to pause on that for a moment because that is huge. And I want to acknowledge all the work that Kristen and her team have done to make that happen. That's a huge lift, and we should be really excited about that. So currently we have partial implementation in 6 to 8. The reason for that being that we didn't get the funding for that material until slightly later in the game, but we are looking at full implementation for 6 to 8 next year. We have been fortunate to be able to partner with SchoolKit to help strategically plan for implementation, to identify our goals and priorities for this year, and to think about action steps to move that forward. One of our priorities currently, as Kristen already mentioned, is supporting teachers in intellectual prep, in their collaboration, in their shared unpacking of the lessons together, because we found that that is really important in terms of how they're internalizing those materials. So that has been the focus of professional development so far this year, and that will continue throughout the year. We are also thinking about collecting multiple sources of data to help us unpack a little bit more about implementation and inform our next steps and support for the future. So one data point that is going to be important for us comes from our benchmark literacy data. We are still using M-Class as our benchmark literacy assessment. Oh, sorry, you know what I think? Sorry. This is the timer for my child's bedtime. So we know that we need to stop reading books. Okay, not that I ever want to stop him reading books, but we do need to go to sleep. Okay, sorry. Anyways, yeah, mom moment. As I was saying, thinking about the benchmark literacy data, we still have use of M-Class as our literacy benchmark for K through 3 and STAR reading in grades 4 through 8. This is actually the first year we're using STAR in grades 7 and 8, so that's really exciting. So we have benchmark literacy data on every child K through 8, which is a really important starting point to think about future growth and the impact of this program over time. We are also in the process of developing teacher and student surveys to administer throughout the year to get a qualitative sense of how both teachers and students are experiencing this curriculum on the day-to-day. That's really important, and that's data that we would take very seriously. And finally, we have plans for regular classroom observations because we want to see what this curriculum looks like in action. And we're thinking about this through a framework of learning walks. And the purpose of these learning walks is not intended to assess fidelity, it's not intended to be evaluative, but really to help inform us in how we can better support implementation. So this process will encompass developing a common sense of shared look-fors in a fish tank classroom and calibrating ourselves around that so that everybody knows what they should be looking for in these observations. Our intent is to include district leaders, building administrators, as well as educators in this process as well, with the goal of shared learning and really identifying where is implementation strong, what challenges exist, where is there a need for additional professional learning, additional resources, so that we can have a better sense of how to sustain this over time. And all these data sources are going to be really important for us in terms of moving from a place of fidelity this year in our first year of implementation over time to a space where we can be more flexible, more nimble, more responsive in how we're using this curriculum, still with the intent of integrity to the curriculum design, but in a way that is really going to serve the unique needs of the students here in Brookline. So that is the vision, that is the goal, and we look forward to coming back here in the spring and sharing more in terms of our findings in this implementation.
Thank you very much. I have a question. How does this relate, or does it relate to how we are teaching, or our curriculum that we're using for social studies and science and other places where children read text?
It's a really good question, actually, and Kristen and I were talking about that today. So our curriculum coordinators across the disciplines have been involved in some of the review process and certainly have the opportunity to be part of learning walks and understand what instruction looks like, because literacy is really taught in every subject, as you're suggesting. And I think we were talking about it today in terms of kind of thinking about where the fish tank units are taught in sequence. They're in sequence throughout the year. They don't move around. You can't like pop them in and out. But some of our other core subject areas, their units might be a little bit more movable, and there's definitely some overlap in terms of themes and where are there places where we can work together to kind of maybe align our curriculum and also just build those skills together across those spaces.
Thank you. Sarah?
So Kristen and I can tell you that in Brookline, we love peer-to-peer professional development. Our teachers love to get together with each other and use their expertise. And so I just wondered if you could like showcase that in any of this, like in those learning walks. I understand that you're bringing a teacher along with you, but will there be times that teachers will visit each other's classrooms and there will be times when teachers will sit down with each other for PD?
Yes, actually, I'm taking a group of teachers next week to a group of Lincoln teachers that are going to visit Baker, who last year in the spring, some folks had either an opportunity if they wanted to try out the first unit, and at Baker they did. So folks are going to visit that school so that they can see it in action and ask questions, since this is the second time of them teaching it. So I want to foster as much of that across the district so that we have a collaborative approach. Another thing that we're doing too is at the end of last year, I met with the directors of special education and EL. So that's another thing where we want to collaborate and make sure that we are supporting all of our students.
It's exciting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would also mention that, you know, part of the intent of some of their intellectual prep time is that opportunity to work together, to really kind of get to know the curriculum, think about how it is enacted in their classrooms.
That's great.
Jesse and then Suzanne.
Thank you. Kristen, you mentioned writing in your presentation, and my question is, can you discuss what percentage of the writing is done on paper versus how much of it is done in Chromebooks? And the reason I say it is because we know from research that handwriting as a part of learning is so critical to activate more parts of the brain for word recall and memory, et cetera. And at least the other day in a discussion at one of the playgrounds in town with kids, I learned that even poems they're writing that reflect about themselves, because I asked them sort of what's up, what are you doing? At the playground, they said they're typing the poems into the Chromebook, and that way it gets shared in some shared space for teachers to review, you know, and the whole thing, like math homework or all these other things being done on a computer. So for something as critical as writing, I just wonder what the balance is between, or maybe it's all being done on Chromebooks. I don't know, but can you shed a little light on that for us?
I mean, I can't give you direct like percentages, quite frankly,
no.
right now, you know, but I would say in the younger grades, they're definitely using paper pencil. They're not using Chromebooks.
Right.
You would see that more in the middle school level, but definitely for like K1, 2, 3, maybe some. I think sometimes it depends on the teacher, you know, in the intermediate grades, but they use Chromebooks more in the middle school.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, thanks.
Suzanne?
Well, actually, Sarah stole my thunder, or the same thing I want to say, which is I really want to highlight the learning walks, including teachers. It's another example of where the building administrator might say that is something we're going to commit to doing, and he or she may want to put money to cover for substitutes, you know, in their budget. I don't know how they're going to do that, but that's the kind of thing where the budget has to align with the work. And I just think it's so critical to have common planning time and instructional learning teams, and to do that collaboration. So I absolutely agree with Sarah that working together, observing each other's classes, and then having a moment to talk about it, certainly not in a judgmental way, but in a way that says, what is happening, what did we see, what could I take back to my classroom? It's so important. I'm so glad you're doing the work. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
Thank you. Robin, if I was an alien who arrived from some distant planet and I listened to your presentation, I would have assumed that you had been here for many, many years. It's incredibly impressive to me that you use the word "we" to describe the history of the work that's been done. And you were incredibly comfortable with the history of the development of fish tank and probably other stuff too. So I just want to say that as an alien, I think you've been here for a really long time, and that's great. And both of you, I like the fact that you spoke quickly because it meant that you were enthusiastic and passionate about what you've been doing, and I congratulate you on the work that you've done, and this looks great. I love the fact that you're going to have baseline data on every student, K to 8, so to build upon that. So thank you very much. Impressive.
Donna?
I feel like I'm always following Bob. But I do want to say thank you. That was incredibly impressive. And also welcome and congrats, Kristen, on being named permanent. I'm very excited to hear your report back in the spring and hear about the data. I think that's really important that we have those feedback loops at the school committee level. And then I also wanted to ask, what challenges you think you might encounter in the implementation and monitoring stage. And if there were things that you do encounter and that would have budget implications to address, do we have enough runway to incorporate those things into the budget planning for the next fiscal year?
That's a tough question.
Sorry.
But I think that one of the things that to just note, like any implementation, there's bumps along the road, right? You're learning. It's a year of learning and doing something for the first time. So we'll learn a lot in that process, and we'll do the best we can in terms of planning, in terms of budget, based on what we know. And I think that one of the things that the team has also been very good at is thinking about then how do we, if there's additional things that we need, how do we utilize our opportunities for grant funding to make sure that we get those? And so, the PRISM 3 grant is a good example of that, right? So looking at all of our options and always keeping our eyes open to that.
So I'm just going to comment on this so that you don't have to. At the ENR subcommittee meeting or committee meeting and, in various other places, the discussion has been, what does a level service budget for a PSB look like? And that, I think in sort of the outside world's mind is one number, and it's a very easy thing that we should be able to fix. And I think that this presentation, shows us that with education, things get implemented over years. So in my mind, a level service budget for FY27 includes the FY27 implementation of this program. I'm not sure that everyone in town would agree with me, right? So I think these are the budget questions that we're going to have to look at and address both here and with the broader community as we look at overrides.
I'll just say, I think I really appreciate how much thought you're putting into the implementation stage, because there's so much more than just launching a curriculum, right? That's such an ongoing process, and we want that to be as robust as possible. So also, for the students, of course, but to protect the investment as well. So thank you.
Thank you all. Oh, sorry, Carolyn, and then Bella.
Do you want to go first, Bella? I'll echo the thanks and welcomes and congratulations on being here in this work. And I really appreciate people being here so late at night, like you're missing your child's bedtime. No, really, I feel that when I'm here. You're all sitting here and you've worked all day and it's very late, so it's appreciated. And I guess I want to say I'm sorry that you have to be here. And this might be naive because I was not a classroom teacher. So in the earlier grades, and this is a two-part question, the second part is a little bit of a downer, but please take it as a question, not a criticism. So in the earlier grades, are there like prescribed texts that go with the kind of explicit instruction? And then as in the older grades, like, do teachers still use their own classroom libraries? Is there more sort of flexibility in the text, or does that stay prescribed? And then kind of a related question, I guess, and the first part is a real question about the program and how it's done. I did see something, this was flagged by a community member. Let me bring it up. I think it was the 8th grade, like a list of units. And I'm sure all of these texts are valuable. The world is really dark right now. There's a lot of darkness, and young people have a lot to deal with. And I don't know how this fits in, but I'm just going to read the units. Unit 1, facing prejudice. Unit 2, encountering evil. Unit 3, abusing power. Unit 4, surviving repression. Unit 5, facing calamity. So I'm wondering if those themes are necessarily going to be part of our 8th grade, and just if you could sort of speak to that. Fish tank curriculum. I believe that maybe this is 6th through 8th. I don't know if it's 8th.
So to answer your first question, and I mean, Christian, you can jump in too if you want. So the texts are aligned to the instruction. So there are core texts in every unit that are part of the instruction for that unit, and that's even the lower grades, and that actually extends up into the middle school as well. And so there are core texts that it's tied to. So they're not necessarily interchangeable. And so to answer your second question, like those are units within the 8th grade curriculum. And it's also remembering that 8th grade is a year of civics instruction as well. So it's very much tied to the overall learning of our 8th graders. I don't know if that totally answers your question.
So it sort of answers my question. So like I'm thinking about 6th grade, and I'm remembering the classroom sort of being lined with the teacher's own books. So do those will still be
Yes,
used in some ways?
classroom libraries are still there.
Yeah.
If you think about younger grades, there are many read alouds that may happen in the day that kids might be reading on their own
Okay.
and choosing books on their own. But the texts that are core instruction tied to the fish tank curriculum
Okay.
will be consistent across classrooms.
So
Students' experience.
like in my more recent child's 6th grade, the approach was like book groups, and kids would pick their own book, and then they would sit at tables and guide their own book groups. So is this sort of replacing that? Okay.
Yes, that is.
Thank you.
But alongside that, there's still the opportunity for choice reading.
Okay.
Along the,
Okay.
And those books that were used in the book clubs are still available for students to make choice. 'Cause
Yeah.
that is an expectation. My daughter's in 6th grade at Lincoln, and her teacher, they had an open house last week. So they're reading the core text of the Watsons Go to Birmingham as their first, but there is an expectation that the child will also have their own choice book to read independently.
Okay. And then just going back to these themes that I read, I'll just thank you for maybe being open to that being flagged as, I think those themes sound sort of heavy to me for young adolescents. So maybe there'll be more discussion about that in future months.
I'll just also offer, Fish Tank is hugely responsive to feedback and is constantly updating units, materials. So there are already several new units that have been developed that were not utilizing this year because they are so new, but the content is constantly changing, and that is absolutely the kind of feedback that we would be interested in exploring and providing to Fish Tank. And I think moving forward, we will make decisions about, the trajectory of the units and what we want to stick with and what we don't. And there does need to be some opportunity for us to make those kinds of decisions in a way that benefits Brookline kiddos. So I think that is an evolving question, but I am really heartened by the fact that Fish Tank seems to take our feedback seriously. So.
Thank you. Mariah and then Superintendent Wong.
This is just a general question, sort of tied to this conversation, but in terms of the selection of texts, is it accurate to say that the selection of text that you're making is basically like you're taking what's in Fish Tank? Are you being influenced in any way? Are you editing the content, or like, are you basically offering the texts in the unit as designed?
The expectation this year is that we are teaching the recommended scope and sequence for each unit.
Okay.
We will not be deviating from that this year.
Okay. Because I know that in some communities, there's been a lot of pressure to edit texts or anything else, and so I'm just sort of wondering where that stands in Brookline.
Yeah, for year one, I think it's really important that we are teaching as written, right? This has been thoughtfully designed and vetted, and by changing things at this stage, we really compromise the design of the program, and so we want the full experience of the curriculum first before we can make decisions in a cohesive way about changes we might need to make. Yeah.
Superintendent?
Okay, thank you. I was going to say something different, and I still will, but I was just thinking of what Carolyn just read, and I thought, whoa, I'm really curious to see what those books are that are in those units. But it's also so middle school.
I taught eighth grade ELA all the time.
It's so middle school, and eighth grade, they just are in Sturm and Drang, like they're just, and I wonder if the titles of the units are meant to engage or provoke or get them to think, but I am curious to see like what those books are, but it also felt to me like it, out of context, it does sound kind of like doom and gloom, so we should look at it. Maybe they could recategorize, but they struck me as so middle school. So I wanted to say more about one of the members asked like what they foresaw would be challenges in the implementation. So you know what, our teachers are differentiated as well. And so everybody learns at the pace that they're going to learn. And I think the challenge right now is to give everyone what they need. Let's talk about equity, right? So giving everyone what they need. Some are just going to go faster, or it's going to, I don't know, some people will just gravitate toward it faster, other people might struggle with it. And I just think it's really incredibly positive that this is happening, that people are, all their tried and true, they are shifting to new curriculum, different books. And when you have your tried and true, like, oh, kids respond this way, I have my whole repertoire, I know what to do. And so this is really, it's a bit courageous, everyone doing it all at once, but I also think it's great because everyone's doing it all at once and they can learn from one another. And again, shared experience about, what did you do? Or I didn't expect this to happen. It could be kind of bumpy along the way, or sometimes people feel self-conscious, like I'm not getting it as fast as everyone else. So it's really about supporting teachers. It's a vulnerable space to be. And so it's supporting our educators so that they feel there might not feel as smooth, or just I have questions, all of that. So I think this is the honeymoon part. And so later on we'll hear about how it went and how maybe some challenges were overcome and adjustments that will be made. But it's quite an endeavor.
Suzanne, and then we're going to move on.
I just want to give a quick shout out to our librarians. They do thousands of books circulated every year, thousands, and they really know literature, and they're really good at helping students find the books they need. So I think we are really blessed in addition to having a great literacy team, they're part of that team in many ways. And so I just want to give them a shout out.
Thank you for your presentation, and I hope that your child is fast asleep when you get home. Next on our agenda, thank you, is the FY27 Capital Improvements Program request, including deferred maintenance items, discussion, and possible vote. I believe this is Dr. Givens? No, this is Jesse, okay.
Hi, good evening. So the Finance Subcommittee met yesterday under Mariah's chairmanship and chairpersonship. And what you have before you here are two spreadsheets. One is a detail of the deferred maintenance plan by school for eight of the buildings. And what we, in reviewing it yesterday, we asked Dr. Givens to provide or to update the top spreadsheet, which is the smaller table. There was some clarity we wanted around what she meant by classroom capacity in terms of improvements. And so that actually is focused on BEEP. And so we had her add some wording in there to make it clear to all members that, oh, it's up on the screen too, I can't read it. That's leases for BEEP over the next several years. She had furniture listed. We thought it would be clearer and also clearer when it gets down the budget cycle a little bit to also include anything that needs to be done in the schools for fixtures and equipment. Then she had the deferred maintenance, gender-inclusive bathrooms, which show up in several of the schools, are also a project. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, well, the Lawrence cafeteria expansion, this is, I think, a consultant study to look at feasibility for expanding it. When Lawrence was renovated, the cafeteria wasn't, and there's some spacing issues. So in terms of capacity, so.
I think you mean to say, and then some classrooms were added since some more capacity was added in the rest of the building. And so the cafeteria doesn't reflect that.
Exactly, in terms of amount of space for all the students that are there. And so that's in the FY27 plan. The deferred maintenance is brought across from the larger sheet for each of the next several years. I mentioned gender-inclusive bathrooms and climate control, which really includes all the AC updates that need to be made across the different buildings that have been asked for. And then down the line, Baker School, a feasibility study perhaps 4 years out, and then nothing yet, TBD on potential construction or something. We'll sort of get there when we get there. And so we can open it up for discussion. The subcommittee. Yes, yeah, exactly. And the subcommittee, after a substantial discussion with Dr. Givens and also with some comments from Joe Albuquerque from the buildings, voted unanimously to support this plan and then bring it forward to the full school committee this evening.
Are you making a motion, Jesse?
Yes, I will. Oh.
Okay,
Then, yeah, the
so
motion-
Jesse moves to accept the CIP program request as presented. Mariah seconds that.
I do. Can I just make a clarification? Both the agenda and this document are labeled FY27. They should be FY27 to FY32 CIP request, because it's a multi-year request. That one does, but
Right, that's
the
it.
agenda itself and the cover sheet don't.
Carolyn?
Thanks. Thanks for that, Jesse. So I see the color key
Yes.
and the rating in terms of urgency
Yeah, priority, yes.
okay, I'm sorry. So the numbers do not refer to they're prioritized?
1 through 3 refers to urgency, and then 4 and 5 were climate control and bathrooms.
But do 4 and 5?
It's not related to urgency.
Okay,
Yes.
thank
Right,
you.
it was just to separately categorize them so they could be grouped and put on this cover sheet.
And clear consistently in the
Yes.
column.
Yeah,
Thank
we were a
you.
little confused, so.
And who's rating, this is Charlie's rating? Like, who comes up with the rating, the urgency?
Yeah, I thought it was a shared I thought it was a shared conversation between principals, Joe.
Oh, okay.
And possibly, I'm not sure if Charlie participated in the walkarounds or not.
Susan is available.
Oh, okay, perfect. Sorry, Susan, go ahead.
Yeah, so there were conversations between the Director of Operations and principals primarily. We did have a conversation with Charlie and asked him if he had any thoughts on what else he's seeing in the field that we might want to add. And he said that he felt that we had covered everything there. The development of the top 3 categories, urgent. So we did some work on those definitions, and it was with principal input that the rating system was applied.
Thank you. So I guess I will just make one, install additional AC units. I guess I mean, obviously, there are so many competing interests and not as much money. I wish AC was urgent. But. Where are you talking about that it's not? Which one are you looking at? Well, I can't tell if it's urgent, I guess. Like, I can't tell, let's say I see it at Baker and I see it at Hayes.
I mean, you can see that the AC is front-loaded. There's 540,000 for next year, 550 for the year after that in the little spreadsheet. And then it goes 350 and 100. So it's
Okay.
certainly front-loaded in years.
Yes.
In the years of implementation.
Okay, climate control, okay,
Right.
okay.
When it was
Got it.
categorized
Thank
as
you.
a 5, it lost its sort of rating, but you can see it.
Okay, that's super helpful, thank you. So combining these.
Susan, just so I understand, because I don't think I captured this yesterday, it ties to what you just asked, Carolyn. Is this funds that we're asking for climate control is in addition to Charlie's HVAC CIP line that he also has? Because these are priorities that need to be accelerated, is that the?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
We would like
So
to
this is-
accelerate them because not all of our buildings have climate control throughout. So it's a high priority of ours as a school district, and we want to accelerate the addition of units throughout our schools.
And sorry, I have another question unless somebody else does.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
Just looking at this. So Baldwin is on here, I noticed, which is interesting because it's an administrative, so it's it's on here because we're the user
building.
agency?
Our building, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
There were deferred requests. They were already all completed, and it's just here for record keeping.
okay, thank you.
Sure.
And, I mean, it's easy for you to be like, there's no funding, but I'm just seeing,
No, it's
that's
not
for the first
funded.
time.
It says complete.
No, I see that. I'm just saying, like, I'm just catching up with this.
Sure,
So just
sure,
be
sure, sure.
patient as
Of course.
I'm trying to take in this super teeny tiny print and it's lots of information. And I'm sure this is an enormous amount of work. So as with all else, thank you, everyone.
We'll just say that when it's submitted to the town, we will collapse out the items that have been complete because it's a plan for 27 through 32. It's presented this way so that the committee has an understanding of what work has been accomplished and what remains.
The committee yesterday was really grateful and thrilled at like this, I mean,
Yeah.
it's tiny font and you could just see how much
It's really cool.
work, right,
Yep.
exactly goes into
Totally.
creating something this content
It's
rich.
really,
Yeah.
really clear.
Suzanne, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this. I am intrigued by, this is going ahead to the guidelines for budget, but just bear with me, about if there's federal or state subsidies money available that we might have a universal pre-K. And I'm looking at that and wondering how that would, how we would meet the needs of classroom capacity for BEEP. So we have BEEP leases here. I don't, are we just renewing what we have? We're not changing any of that?
The leases that we have right now run through, I think it's 29, FY 20.
Yes.
Yes. And then we would need to renegotiate leases at that point. So our leases expire at that time, and that's why you see TBD thereafter.
Okay, great. And if by some miracle we do get funding for universal pre-K, I guess we'll come back to the drawing board.
It had better include money for buildings as well.
Yeah, okay, great. Thanks.
Anything else? Okay, Jesse has a motion on the floor, Mariah second. Donna, how do you vote?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes?
Mariah? Yes. Jesse?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you. We are moving on to item 8A, the FY27 to FY31. Can't believe I'm saying FY31. Budget guidelines, discussion and possible vote. Mariah?
So let me start by giving a little bit of context while I log into the Wi-Fi and connect, but I'll just yap while I'm doing this background. Yap important information. So we had 45-ish minutes of conversation about this document yesterday, and it was, as they say, robust conversation. It's my goal for tonight to not plan on taking any sort of final vote on this. I think that there's a lot more conversation to be had. We didn't even get all the way through the document. We spent a lot of time on section 1. So I think we just need to keep going on that. My plan was that everyone has 2 documents, I think, and I'm just going to wave those around. So you have the print copy of the marked up last year's document. This one represents what Jesse and I went through yesterday before our meeting. And Jesse had some comments and we rolled it all into one document so people could see like his additions and subtract, or his additions, I think for the most part, and subtractions. They're for discussion. Nothing is final. This is a group document. And then earlier today, Donna provided a different version, which I haven't had the chance to read, but Donna will get the chance to, hope if we have time, presuming we have time, to talk about what she feels are, you didn't make it in track changes, so I don't know what's different, but you can talk us through, it's all different, that's great, you can talk us through it. And with that, I'm gonna try and join the Zoom and do that. I wonder if what makes sense, Donna, is maybe while I get technically on, maybe you want to talk a little bit about what you cared about in this document, and then I'll get my document loaded up and we can sort of start having a bigger conversation.
Okay,
Does that
I'm
work?
happy to. And I'll just say that I did it as an exercise in my own brain, because something about this document wasn't, it wasn't resonating for me in a way that as somebody who sat on the other side of this table for so many years, there was some disconnect for me that I was having trouble with. So part of my process was just a little bit of starting from scratch. And in my thinking, it was more about framing our specific like vision or priorities over the next year, in the hopes that it would help create an increased efficiency for Superintendent Wong and the district leaders when they're going to actually build the budget. In other words, I wanted to capture more of what was in my head in terms of a vision for what was important in terms of priorities, but at the same time leave a lot more leeway for the district to then interpret that, because I think you're best positioned to, when you're building out a budget, you're best positioned to say, to give life to what our vision is for our priorities. So I essentially took this document and the strategic plan and meshed it all together. And adjusted the introduction. So the introduction, I think, has a lot more narrative to it. And then I tried to maintain, and then I restructured the budget guidelines so that they align with the architecture of the strategic plan. And trying to maintain the goals that were, the bullet points that were in here in there. Like I tried to move them into categories that aligned with the strategic plan. The end.
Thank you. So that's an interesting thought about, do we want to adjust our, as you're saying, adjust our guidelines to align with the 4/5, goals of the strategic plan? That's an interesting idea to consider. And again, I think like this document, you have the version that the finance subcommittee started with yesterday. We started to make some notes as we went along yesterday, but like nothing's written in stone. I think the idea is that we're synthesizing, trying to listen, and we're going to go back and hopefully come up with a next draft that gets us closer to where we need to get. Hopefully with a document that we'll all reach, that we'll all agree to vote for.
Any other input for Mariah and Jesse before we?
So,
Carolyn?
thank you. And I haven't read through these, but I also think it's interesting what Donna's saying. Two things. One, I appreciate that she's bringing like the years out there and that perspective. And I do think it's interesting to think about it. I think it makes logical sense, quite possibly, for it to mirror the architecture of the strategic plan. And then I'm thinking also about Superintendent Wong's presentation to us tonight about what
I'm glad,
she is
yes.
is pulling out.
I'm glad you say that, because actually that was I meant to mention
Yeah.
that earlier. It's a comment somewhere in here. I think it's this one, and it says, reference content of September 18th, strategic objectives
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Yes, because we talked about that last night, and we had talked about it last week also with the 3 deputies in the room about, like, tell us what is the key
Right,
stuff that's going to
yeah.
happen. And they said yes, and then it showed up in tonight's presentation, and like, yes, we should make sure that we're elevating and highlighting the
I mean, I think that makes
priorities,
sense,
yes.
assuming, that we support Superintendent Wong in her vision and her priorities, then I think it's sort of logical. So I like that thinking directionally, having not weeded through these yet.
Sarah.
So let's start with what Donna said to kind of build from. Last night we were able to talk about the first section, and I would love to go through Donna's document from the beginning, so beginning with teaching and learning. And I'd like to highlight that I like having the literacy goal as the first one. That makes sense to me. And the point that I was trying to make last night, that maybe I'll try to state again here, is when you do guidelines, in the past we've said we try to not have too many of them, maybe get it down to like 5, so we're really saying something. Because if we put everything out there, we can't do it all. We know we can't, and so we're not really saying anything if our list is too long. So we do have this dichotomy between this idea that we keep on saying we all really value small classes. And in fact, our classes in Brookline are maybe even smaller than they need to be. And so like if we look at this, at the first document, and you look at the first thing that's on that document, it says,
Which one are you referring to as the first document?
If we look at, I think that you gave us this document first.
Yes, okay.
And then this is the Donna document.
Okay.
So at the first document, at the first item, that one started out with enrollment forecasts. And so ensure class size at the high school remains closer to recent historical trends. That I totally see why we put in. And then we say, leverage K-12 enrollment forecasts to identify where positions can be shifted. Is that our priority? Or, I would like to argue, is the reading literacy initiative our priority? Because I'm not sure how much we can do with shifting right now in order to change classroom sizes. We have a high school that has things already figured out. We have a middle school where it's really hard to shift classes because, you have a one science teacher that's full-time, and to reduce that would kind of mess with the whole staffing. And in K-5, you have 8 different schools, and so it's really hard in a school that's like 3 sections to bring up or down those averages in classes. So I would argue that let's start with teaching and learning and the idea of literacy initiative as Donna has it. And what I really like is yesterday we were talking about some of the statements about literacy being maybe too aspirational. And here she has including materials. And I think that gets really close to what budget is, what's important about budget.
I don't, just to clarify, I don't think we said that we were too aspirational. I think we said it wasn't specific.
Okay.
Yes.
I actually want to just comment on what you said, Sarah, because I want to push back a little bit, because I actually read that differently, and maybe I'm reading this incorrectly, but I read that as leverage K-12 enrollment forecasts, that next year, if there's a fourth grade, I'm making all of these up, so please, people who are watching, like, don't read any school into it. Like, there's a section, the size of that cohort is going to collapse by one. So therefore, a fourth grade teacher could get moved to a school where there's going to be a potential expansion. I read that as just us using our staff efficiently for where we might have the need, and using those enrollment forecasts and being nimble with our resources.
Does that raise the level of priority for you?
But I don't think you need
It
to
does when we're
consider
in a
that.
constrained environment, yes.
But can I make a suggestion, which is that one, to your point, Sarah, if we think about it in terms of the 5 strategic goals, I think that this one really ties with the idea, which I think we think of important, is continuing this process of being able to retain FTE to then dole out later on, and being able to have that reserve. And so to the extent that that might actually go under the A and F goal more appropriately, rather than teaching and learning, because it supports teaching and learning, but maybe not directly in the same way. Like, maybe it really goes with this other thing.
We are all sure that we still want to have that reserve, like that.
Exactly, and so when you
something
think
that we're
about
all
the reserve fund comes from Susan and team leveraging K-12 enrollment forecasts, because they pull those seats, those FTE back to then reallocate them during the year. That's really important. So everyone wants the reserve fund, so that line is really important, but maybe not in teaching and learning, to your point.
So
Well, it
let's
wasn't,
combine.
just to add, it wasn't
Yeah?
in that version, it's under staffing and enrollment.
That's right,
where it
exactly.
makes logical sense.
Where it does make
Push it into
logical
teaching and
sense.
learning, then it's not.
But maybe Mariah was saying, could we eliminate 1A because we have it later on in the document?
Well, I think that, I guess what I'm gonna ask is, maybe I can ask you all questions to elucidate what I need to do for a next draft, rather than,
I think that makes sense.
okay, so I guess one of my first thought is, how do people feel generally about Donna's idea of aligning with the strategic plan 5 goals? Does anyone not like that? If so, that's going to be in my next draft, and I'll use yours and reallocate stuff. My next question is,
I think we should actually refer to Dr. Wong's slides too, and align with.
yep, I think that was very clear as how we can tie out, and I think that was a plan yesterday, and it's reaffirmed today, that we're going to very clearly pull that content out that you and the team worked on to incorporate here. My next question to you all is, do we want to repeat things here that are in the strategic plan, and/or specific, and particularly those things that were already highlighted tonight? Do we need to repeat them? Because I'll give an example. The thing that's in the current document is 1B, intensive focus on literacy rollout. Yeah, we've already, like, that's been said repeatedly in the strategic plan and tonight. Do we actually need to have that as another thing here? Like, as our own guideline? We already know that they think it's important, it's in the strategic plan. Why are we repeating ourselves?
I think because it needs to continue to be funded, because
But they are going to fund it, because our first guideline, and I just want to go back to this on page 1, our first guideline is that, the primary guideline is that all activities described in the strategic plan, I'm not saying we won't modify that wording, I'll say all activities, but particularly the ones that were presented on September 18th, will have clearly identifiable funding in the budget. The rest of this stuff is basically, hey, guys, things we didn't mention in the strategic plan, don't forget these things. This is not the, like, I want to highlight and bold things in the strategic plan.
I really hear you for that. And I think that literacy initiative is so important. So, but I will defer to other people.
Can I get a sense from the group on that? Are we repeating things, or are we, because we want to emphasize them, or are we not repeating them because?
Can I ask, can I jump in?
Yeah.
Can I shift the question slightly?
I love it. Look how the tables have turned.
I'm
for it.
learning, finally. I would ask if you're comfortable, Bella or Robin, would it be helpful for, like, when you're building the budget, do you need to see that in there? Is that helpful for you? Or is it, like, are we being redundant from your perspective?
It's helpful in the advocacy. So I think we would build it, but then in the advocacy of the budget, to say that we are following the guidelines. So if the school committee votes a set of guidelines that enhance that, we can point to it.
And I was going to say, to answer your sort of rhetorical maybe question, Mariah, I think the strategic plan and this are two different,
Yes.
they have two different functions, and this is really public facing. So I think it's a good sort of transparency document.
Okay.
As Bella's saying, like, there's probably lots of uses where we want to refer to something concise that has some sort of more tangibles than the strategic plan, which maybe is a little bit less like deliverables, but
Sure.
sort of thoughts.
Okay. My next question is, I'm going to go down, I'm going to skip world language for now. We had a lot of conversation about that yesterday, and I don't know that we're going to sort that one out tonight on where we land. But what we didn't, and we spent a lot of time on it yesterday, what we didn't spend time on, I want to scroll all the way down, was the preparation for possible override in FY '27. And what I would like to hear from the committee, or have a discussion with staff, is the 4A through D that are here, I believe came directly from you, Superintendent Wong. And so the question I have is this what the committee wants to see? And have that sort of, if we need to have any sort of rationalization between this plan and what people want to see, I think that's important. Particularly, I think, and I'm going to try and articulate this, I think it's here, but basically, like, what is the granularity of the budget that we want to see? For example, do we want to see the level services budget? And I think this is what's written here. Basically, you're saying, Bella, we're going to B is the level service budget. First, we're going to reduce the things that we already have of efficiencies. And then we'll provide that as a sort of a total. And then anticipated growth needs. And that's essentially things that we're already doing. And I think this is what you, Val, were alluding to earlier of, hey, these things are already in motion, and we're considering, like, we'll tell you that they aren't in, but really this is a level service because it's the continuation of a multi-year program that we have already initiated. Then restoration, which we have talked about several times, right? So the things that we removed last year, but as we've talked about earlier tonight, the communications program as one area is really quite challenged without having those positions. And if people recall, we had paused even multiple positions because we did not eliminate them. But again, so this whole restoration bucket. And then D, which is improvements. I don't know what you want to call that when it's.
So is the question, do we like it that way?
Exactly. Is there anything in this granularity that's missing? I really want to talk through it because what I don't want to have happen is as staff get to the end of the process and someone says, but why didn't you deliver a budget that is something else than what you've delivered? Because that's really hard to go back and have to recreate afterwards. I want us to all be very clear on what we are expecting to see.
Jesse?
Suzanne had, I have
Suzanne
a comment,
first and
but
then
Suzanne had her hand.
I don't know if I want to bring this up, but it seems to be important to me. It's a contract negotiations year, and so I don't know what that will mean in terms of how we position it and the override and what other kinds of funding we might need, but it's important. It's not just salaries. There are other things that may cost money, like additional professional development, or if we were to do common planning times or whatever, other things other than just
The high
salary.
school schedule.
Right, school schedules. But I do think that, and when we think about the override, we need to think about the impact from negotiations in the contract.
I assumed, anticipating collective bargaining was going to be part of the level services.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to have it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So assuming that CBAs are then in B, in one of the Bs.
Okay.
Jesse and then Carolyn.
one of the activities we've been doing in expenditures and revenue is to have every department in town present to us their situation in terms of their budget, looking both at their expenses now and going forward and their revenues now and going forward. So what I don't see in either of the guideline documents is revenue. Anything in the budget
Well,
on
that's
that.
because we don't generally,
Well, I'm saying we have materials fee, we have BEEP, we have maybe summer program, whatever. Is there?
Saying proposed new revenue streams?
I think that from a town-wide picture, if there were ways in which we could identify even our current revenue stream in the budget, it might be small. I mean, 85% of our budget.
talking about ours separate from the town allocation?
I think what Jesse might be referring to is, for example, at the last override, or maybe it was 2 overrides ago, that is when building fees became baked into the budget as a revenue source. I would just give that
I want to
example.
clarify that you're talking about
It's talking about school side
School-specific,
generation of revenue.
school generated as opposed to our share of the town pie.
Correct. Only because in expenditures and revenue, we are looking at every department's ability to bring funds in. It might not be large in the schools because we're basically spending 65% of the budget, of the town's budget, but that's because we need it, and no one disagrees with that. But if we go to ask for more money next year, even without an override, one of the questions that people have been asking is, what about revenue? So I don't believe it's a large quantity of the 20 million or so that's left of the 142 after you take 85% out for salary. But it is something that we can point at and say, this is money that's coming in. So I've just wondered why, even in the guidelines that were produced before I joined, there's no mention at all about revenue. So I'm just putting it out there as something to think about.
Maybe you evaluate current operations and programs for possible efficiencies and revenue. I kind of feel like it fits in that category.
Yeah.
I do.
that's great.
I do say keep in mind that there's always a balance of fees and access, and that would be something for you to think about. But it probably makes sense to identify it.
Right, and one of the other things that has been brought up, I think it came up in a CPAC meeting last year as well as in ENR, had to do with expanding the ALC, for example, to open it up. If there were seats available for the same number of staff that are running it, could we in fact, let's say there are 2 seats available and we opened it up to 2 students from a neighboring town or city that's looking for the kind of advanced and excellent support that we do provide in the ALC, that would be income. So that's sort of another area I've been thinking about in terms of producing a sense to the town that we bring money in. Yeah, yeah, that's the idea.
Did you have your hand up? No. Okay. Carolyn?
Thanks. So what it really is, I guess I always thought the purpose of this was to sort of guide the preparation of the budget. So the preparation for possible override in FY '27, I mean, this is important, and I'm glad we're going to have this conversation one way or the other. But I'm sure it's just me being dunce. Like, how come that's
It's
in
because we have to
this?
plan for like 4 different scenarios, right? So if we have an override, what we can afford. If we don't have an override, what do we have to cut? If we ask for,
Okay.
right?
So this is requesting to be, these are the, okay, that makes sense. I think to answer the question that I think you asked, Mariah, about 4, I think I just need, I feel like I need to think, I can't answer. Okay, but I do.
This is really meant to be just a conversation. I
Okay.
knew we weren't going to get to that tonight.
But I do support and I know this is like a hot topic, And I think the public is going to obviously need to see, the public is going to want to see level funded plus what we want and the justifications.
Do you mean level funded or level service?
Level service,
Okay,
thank you.
Yes. I did the same thing the other day. I said the wrong one. It happens, yeah.
And sorry, I'm gonna, can I jump back to something? No, I'll jump back later.
I want to add one request that I would have for 4, which is the no override outcome.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is here right now. So I think there needs to be an explicit, if this fails, what do we lose?
Oh
Which
my
is
gosh.
worse, I think, than a level services
Yeah.
situation.
That was an obvious one we missed, sorry.
That's okay. That's why we're talking about it.
Although I'm not sure, do you have enough data to actually do that budget? We don't know what an override amount yet would be, right?
At this point, they don't, but this is 3 months from now.
Well, what happens is,
You're talking about January,
well,
yeah.
eventually,
Yeah,
right?
this is, right,
So
this
we-
is the budget delivery.
So we create a level services budget, we find out what the allocation is.
Right, I was thinking today versus January. We
Yeah,
know in
no.
January.
Okay, now you can go ahead, Carolyn. I just wanted to tack that on while we
Oh.
were still on 4.
Thanks, yeah, I just wanted to jump back to the classroom item, whichever that was.
1A.
1A. Whether it's worded exactly the same. I actually am not, I don't adore the wording on the high school one, because I think it's a little vague and depends on what you mean by historical. But I think it's, I like having that in there. And again, as this is a public-facing document, I think it's something that's important to the public. So I favor, and I think it's important to our high school leadership, I'm going to guess, you know, that it's a statement of support to Anthony and Hal for us, you know, to address a commitment to class size.
That comes very specifically, I think maybe you were just elected after that one. 2 budget cycles ago, there was a restoration that we did at the end of that budget. I think it was the same year that world language was cut. We added back some FTE to the high school. because-
Right, that was the year that, yeah,
The 7 FTE or whatever it was.
Yeah.
right.
So I think that's where that language is derived from, was subsequent to that year.
This conversation is going well in that we're starting to identify some top-level priorities. Is there any chance that I can ask you a question that's for all of us? Is what would
asking a
be, to Mariah, sorry, because Mariah was asking us questions.
Yeah.
What would be, in addition to literacy and class size, what would be other top-level priorities for people?
Are we talking about in
Can I ask a favor? Can we park the, like, I feel like I got a lot tonight.
Yep.
And I want to park, because I think that, what I would like us to come back to, if it's okay, next time is a reshuffled document, and then then to have the conversation of world language, like the world language conversation, and then the like, what else is missing? Like, throw your favorite things in, and if there's anything we can remove, because I take what Sarah said to heart of, I'll give an example, like SIPs, I feel like when we first added that in several years ago, they really weren't in the budget cycle. We have a pretty great rhythm. I'm just saying, for me, that one item could probably go, because I feel pretty good about where things are at with that. But again, I just think we could have that conversation next time, but like, let's look at the next version of the document and then hopefully make it a little further and have some of those like very topic-specific conversations at that point.
I think that makes good sense.
Good, and
Also,
we're at time.
It's getting late. I was actually going to suggest that we dispense with subcommittee and liaison reports since we met last week, and the only one that's met, are you still
okay,
on
you
a
can
budget?
What?
Are you on budget still? I don't want to move on if you're still on the budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going to make a comment in response to what Carolyn was saying earlier in terms of this document being, I think you called it public facing. And so when I was doing that synthesizing or like reworking it or reframing it so that it aligned more with what was in my head, I focused on that top part because I do think it is a public facing document. I think we're in a really difficult year and we need to communicate very clearly that our vision is to advance the strategic plan, center student needs, and steward resources responsibly.
I really liked what you wrote, and I will take what this is and weave it in and
Yeah,
modify
so
things, thank you.
I think that I was thinking along the lines that you're thinking, that we really have to center our thinking for this budget cycle predominantly, and then give more room to Bella and the administration to give definition to what some of those, what those priorities would look like.
Thank you, Donna, and thanks for taking a stab at a second document. So I was going to say we're going to dispense with subcommittee and liaison reports because nobody has met since last week, except that I'm realizing that ENR, the committee that never sleeps, met at noon today.
That's right.
Yeah, 5 times since our last school committee meeting last week, no.
Well, that's convenient because what we just did really responds very clearly to what was discussed today at ENR. So having number 4 in this document is a helpful answer to what ENR is asking of us.
Okay. Any other?
Can I make one comment?
I think that it'll be good that we get a sanity check from ENR by providing that and being like, I do not want to have anyone feel like they haven't got what they want and then staff has to scramble after the fact. I would have like everything to be baked in to the process so that there is no surprises and then frustration. So it will be important that we have clear communication. I'm sure I'll reach out to Cliff from the advisory committee perspective, and you and Jesse can go back to ENR too, to make sure that there's, that everyone is marching in order in a timely way as we go forward.
I'll just add one more comment then. If you, in the redone version of a plan forward for expenditure and revenue, it was decided today that we're going to split into 3 subcommittees. One that's going to look at town expenditures and revenue, one that's going to look at school expenditures and revenue, and a third that's going to look at the long-range forecast and recommendations. No school committee member is going to be on the school one, so you can anticipate some volunteers from the other part of the expense and revenues committee. I think the feeling was that we'd already have we both volunteered to be on it, so we might want to push back a little bit on that, but the idea was to get, fresh folks from outside the school district to ask these questions. My comment then was that Vel already has the questions we put together. You've already clarified, like beyond any need for more clarity on your timeline, and that the data that the expenditure and revenues committee needs will come at the rate that the district has the ability to answer. And so
is this subcommittee not going to reach out then until that's done?
well, they would like to, we would like, Chair Green would like to have all the assignments to these 3 subcommittees in by tomorrow, or by the weekend, and then they're going to begin working. So I'm just giving you a heads up that.
I just don't know what they're going to be working on. So we were given a set of questions,
Right.
and honestly, we are committing quite a bit of time and energy. Whatever time we're spending on this, we are not spending on the other things
Right.
that we do to
understand.
support our schools.
I understand.
So I think they should wait till we finish and then engage with what we offer.
I'll be happy to take that back to them tonight.
Yeah, in response to the questions that they gave us.
Right, sure. Yes.
So,
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say that I thought what Donna did was great. I think that this is an unusual year, as everybody knows. And I think the whole effort toward creating a real clear budget, that a clear principles of the budget for the public to see is certainly an important step one. But my question is there a timeline, Bella, for, now we're talking about principles, then we're going to talk about specifics. So what's the timeline?
For that, so I had always said the month of September. So we're still in September. So we're
Right,
hoping,
Bob, I just want to clarify, what's the budget timeline?
no, I
what's-
think the response and the questions or,
Oh, that's
No,
what I'm
the
trying to
oh,
clarify.
no.
When-
What was-
Okay, if this is an override year, what are the expectations from this committee or from the town for the schools to have clarity on principles and actual specific budgetary recommendations?
So we have a whole finance subcommittee and in conjunction with staff, let me turn on my mic. Finance subcommittee in conjunction with staff develops this every year, this very detailed budget development calendar, and it maps to all of our meetings. And off the top of my head, we have this document scheduled for several meetings, but it is planned to be voted in the month of October. So we are coming right up because staff needs to use it to be able to do all the work that they need to do. Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So simultaneously to that, at the Override Study Committee, they have submitted a very detailed list of questions.
You have them.
That you have a copy of, to Superintendent Wong and team, and they are diligently working on those questions, which have obviously revenue and budgetary implications, program implications, and lots of detail on our revenues and expenses and program costs. So that's simultaneously happening, and then they are looking for a budget forecast, so a forecast, not an actual budget. I believe they've now moved that toward the end of November or mid-November.
Okay. So usually,
That you mean a 3-year or 5-year?
3-year.
So while we're spending time answering the questions, we actually can't build the budget.
Right.
so usually the budget is submitted in February, the preliminary budget. What about now?
The full budget is still on our timetable of sort of December, January discussion.
Same thing.
January, February, March.
I thought they needed it by January to get on the ballot or something.
I
no?
think we were trying to give
That's
a
different.
forecast.
Oh, okay.
But it might be a forecast with a lot of,
So March seems to feel really late on an override in May.
right. So I think we're going to try to give a forecast. It might not be a full-fledged budget,
Yeah.
but do our best to give a forecast. I mean, I think that's what the town side is doing too. They're giving a forecast. I don't think anything they've said is their budget.
Okay.
It's a forecast.
The select board has to have it ready sometime in March to be voted on in order for the override to be on the ballot. So if you work yourself back from that, our budget would have to be pretty well finalized in the January, February timeframe at least, so that we would, and by then we'll know from expenditure and revenues by the end of this year, what the recommendation is in terms of 1-year override, 3-year override, no override, whatever,
Right.
what's going to happen.
A big question for us is what is the allocation going to be? And I don't know that the town knows what the allocation is going to be, but do you understand, like, we can't really make a forecast without knowing that.
Right. I'm just thinking, if budgets are complete in March and it's an override vote in March, that gives you 2 months to sell it. That's, to me, it feels like a very short
Yes.
timeframe.
Okay.
Right, and we are planning to begin working on the talking points, narrative, story about why it's required much earlier than March, like in December or November even already.
And again, I don't know that town site's ready to give an allocation. So we can try to do a forecast once we have that.
Yep. Suzanne?
Yeah, thanks. I'd just like to go back to the subcommittee question.
Yes.
I really feel strongly that there should be somebody from the school committee on that subcommittee.
I'll write to them tonight, yeah. We thought so too.
Okay.
That's why I'm bringing it up.
I'm going to reach out to Bernard and see if maybe he doesn't want somebody who's on the reporting side. I don't know. Okay. Any new business?
I have 2 quick items.
Okay.
They're both thank yous.
Okay.
One is to Betsy for Brookline Day. Thank you. We had an umbrella over our head, a canopy over our head. We had vests there. We had notebooks to give away. We had stickers for parents. And the only reason it was there is because Betsy was there earlier and was able to drive her car right up and get it all set up and get it all unloaded and everything. The
Thank
day
you,
was a
Betsy.
blast for all of us that were there as well. Tons of interactions. But really, thank you so much for your part in making it successful.
Thank you. Second one?
And the second one is in abstention to Kathleen, Bella's assistant. Some parents, as well as I, noticed that there were errors in the dates in the cultural and religious observances calendar, as well as in the notes on the main, like, colorful calendar. And she's been very responsive in discussions back and forth to get them all straightened out. And hopefully, I think by tomorrow, we're going to have it published on the website, and that'll straighten it out for the people that wrote in, and as well as I contacted, them as well to explain that there were some errors and that we get it all straightened out. So thanks to Kathleen.
Thank you. Any other new business? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, I will leave it to Betsy on who moved in second, but Donna?
Yes.
Suzanne? Yes. Sarah?
Yes.
Mariah? Jesse?
Yes.
Carolyn? Motion to adjourn.
Yes. No, I wanted to say, what do you do? That's the what did they do at the Boston Tea Party? Not ahoy, it's like a hi and a say or something.
Bob?
It's very late.
Bob votes to adjourn.
I'm thinking about it.
Okay. I vote to adjourn as well. Thank you, everybody, and have a great evening.